All right, welcome back. This is the last of the PowerPoints, narrated PowerPoints for y'all for this year. Um, this will be covering the end of World War One. I'll be touching briefly on the pandemic, the influenza pandemic, and definitely the Treaty of Versailles. But let's kind of review where we've been. World War Two, or World War Two, World War One begins with Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his lovely wife being assassinated by a Serbian nationalist, kind of accidentally, kind of on purposely, and kind of triggering the whole series of events. It's like Lemony Snicket, right? Series of unfortunate events. One thing leads to another, and we got a world war. 1915, basically a stalemate on the Western Front. The Western Front being mostly in France. France kind of taking the brunt of it. And then in 1916, you got a series of large and influential battles being Verdun and the Somme, which we've already talked about. And then Russia's struggling right about now. And that plays into 1917, where they dip. They're like, we out. And then America's all like, we in. So it's kind of like WWE and the tag team, right? And then we got the end of the war, and then the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. And you can kind of make a weird argument that like World War One didn't technically end; it was just like a 20-year like freeze, and then they restarted again. Obviously, it's way more complicated than that, but like the war to end all wars really ended wars for like 20 years. But like I said, we're going to talk about influenza. So last months of the war killed more people worldwide than all the other battles of the war, which is crazy to think about. I have some stats that we're going to go through later on. But um, people know it as like the Spanish flu, but then in Spain it's known as the French flu. And everyone's like pointing fingers. It's like that Spider-Man meme where they're like, it was originated there, but like no one really knows where it originated. Um, it was first detected in Kansas, but did it originate in Kansas? I don't know. And they kind of American troops arriving in France in the spring of 1918 carried the strain, and then it just was like wildfire. It just like, and then it went through the Western Front. It went all over. It was like it didn't discriminate who it infected and killed. Um, Killed within a few days. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was like killed within a few. Yeah, okay. So like 25 to 30 million people died as a result of this. So it's awful. A lot of reasons people are like, oh, it's Spanish flu because Spain wasn't involved in World War One, so it was like the big thing in Spain. In Spain, kind of right. So like they weren't involved in the war, so their focus would have been mostly on internalizing, and this is a result of it. So I mean that's really all you got to know about that right now. I mean obviously it's more difficult, it's more complicated, it's more in depth than that. But really think about it as like it just swept through at the tail end of the war and really caused some problems. Not like in the U.S., in Spain, in France, in Great Britain, in Germany, literally everywhere. Okay, so when we're talking about the Russian West, because they didn't have to fight Russia no more. Russia's not involved. They don't have an Eastern Front to worry about anymore. They have a Western Front. However, the troops are not as strong. Right? They are pretty exhausted. It's a war of attrition. Okay, at this point, they are struggling, and the Allies are like, "Yo, U.S. of A. just got here, and they haven't been dealing with this nonsense for like years, right? So they're fresh." Um, so you start seeing them getting pushed back, regardless of the fact they only have one front. It's too much to take. So you start seeing Central Powers collapsing. Let me just get through this because it's pretty simple. Just read it off. So the Ottoman Turks they surrender. So the Ottoman Empire that's been around since the Caliphates, right? Look, hundreds and hundreds of years. No mas. No more. They done. They over. It's over. Austro-Hungary's troops they're starting to mutiny. They're getting sick of it. So it's really starting to become like a when is the war going to, not like an if. And it's definitely a no longer like who's gonna win. Like we know at this point, like the Central Powers are real struggling. So your armistice, um, yeah, kind of everyone be mutiny if you're a Central Power, right? Everyone's kind of like, I'm done with this. People went against the Kaiser. The Kaiser being like the head of the German, or again, it's like mostly Prussian, like, but like we're talking the head, the president, the king, the top person is what the Kaiser is. So in the very end of 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II steps down. Germany's like, we're a republic now, woohoo! And basically, at this point, it's 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 basically almost written. Like Germany's not going to win. So they signed an agreement to stop fighting, and that's kind of how it stopped. But if we look at the deaths, like this is what I'm talking about stats wise, right? So let's look at some of these deaths in the of the armed forces. You can see like like literally, and this is not like only 200. Like if we're talking like in the thousands, okay? So like 1.6 million, 1.4 million, 1.2 million. Okay. So don't look at this and be like, wow, only 600? I thought you said like a lot of people died. No, like this is in thousands. So you can see right here, the US not really hit that hard in World War One. It's one of the reasons why the US got like not being in Europe and not entering the war until late benefited the U.S. economy. It benefited the U.S. really. I mean, I know people died from the U.S., but it really didn't affect them as much as other wars, especially World War II. So lots of soldiers died as a result of this conflict. Okay, so here's another interesting piece of statistics for you. Um, when you're looking at this, it's like Battlefield Vessel. I mean, you can kind of tell it's like, but this has different sources. Well, we're not really sure how many exactly people died. It's kind of hard to be 100% accurate, but rough numbers are going to do it justice. But you can see, like, not a lot comparatively. Like, this is insane. These are millions of people. And this is like the amount of people mobilized being like got to the front and helped fight. So outnumbered, significantly outnumbered, and that's one of the big reasons why the Central Powers weren't able to win. So now we got peace, right? Woohoo! We got peace and prosperity. These are being the four big ones that are making this play. This is the U.S. president at the time. I think I have a slide later. Let me look to see if I have them where I name them. I believe I do. Heck yeah, I do. Cool. Okay, so I do have that. So don't stress. You're like, who are they? Well, don't worry. I have a slide later on. Um, the Paris Peace Conference. Okay, so y'all can y'all hear my music? I had to listen to music right now. Driving me nuts if I don't listen to music. I go insane. But anyway, Paris Peace Conference. So the Palace of Versailles. What? What? Did we talk about that? King Louis the Sun King dropping all of his real cash money on a sweet dig that eventually led to the downfall. But we already talked about that. So all these representatives for all these countries coming in, but they were like, yo, Germany, Austria, Hungary, I mean, yeah, we don't want you here. And they're like, but shouldn't we be involved in this? And they're like, nah, you can't be because it's all your fault. Right, and then Russia still they want to be there. They would like to, but civil war is going crazy in Russia, so they're not there. So what are we talking about with the Paris Peace Conference? Well, here we go. Big four. Sorry, we'll get back to that, but here are the big four. So these are the ones with the most power. Um, I'm really not gonna expect you to remember that smaller picture. This one, Woodrow Wilson, right here, tall. But you have the four big ones that are really making an impact. They have a lot to say because their countries have a lot of power. Um, so Woodrow's talking about his 14 points, which I will give you later on. Um, one second, let me. So basically, he develops this, and his idea is If I can enact these 14 points, then we're not going to go back to war. And that will be the war to end all wars, which is a good idea, right? Like, if you look at it, that's a great idea. Enact these 14 points, don't go to war anymore, no one has to die in war, and yeah, it's not bad. So, again, peace, the concept of self determination, and I will read you a definition for you. The process by which a country determines its own statehood and forms its own allegiances and government. Okay, so basically, you determine what you do. You have a choice in how you are run. A lot of it is, it sounds a little nationalistic, like we deserve the ability to have our own say. It's kind of along that same vein, but not like to a blind, like to like a blind allegiance. It's just like we should be able to determine how our governments run, how our allegiances are, how we control our own life. Okay, so all right, Treaty of Versailles. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm back on the right thing here. So considerable debate. How are we going to wrap this up? How are we going to make this treaty? How are we going to determine who has to pay for it? Well, Britain and France, they decided to stick it to Germany, right? They were like, it's all Germany's fault. And Germany's like, we didn't even start. We didn't start anything. We just got brought in because Austria-Hungary. And Austria-Hungary's like, dude, don't blame us. Blame the bloke that killed the Archduke, right? So Germany really got, for lack of a better word, hosed on this one because like they really didn't even start anything, right? They kind of were just allegiances. And I mean, again, it's more complex than that, but like, dang, Germany taking the L and they didn't even like want to enter the game. They just entered like, you know, we're coming in, we take an L, we lose all this stuff, we're having all these problems, and then Britain and France are like, it's all your fault. And they're like, what? So, I mean, again, more complicated, but think about it that way. So, terms of the treaty. So if you want to look this up, you can. But France and Germany border each other, and at this point, it was like kind of like this. So like France here, Germany here. They had like Strasbourg and things that are very Germanic in name. Like Strasbourg now is French, but it was German. They're like, we want that back. So they kind of did this. Instead of it being like France, Germany, they were like, whoop. Now it's like France, Germany, and they have a little bit more land. German colonies no longer German. Okay, they put a ton of. This has a sentence here, but I didn't move this down. So they severely limit the German military. Up to this point, million plus people easily in the German military. They have huge restrictions placed upon them. And then the big one, though, and this is the thing that is cut off here that I really want. They basically say you have to accept full responsibility for the war. It's all your fault. You're guilty. No one else. So that's a huge mental thing. Like they're putting all the blame from all the deaths, all the everything on Germany. All of it. Okay? And this is what we're talking about, the war guilt. So we're supposed to be, y'all, this sounds like a lot of money now. Like you're like, wow, 33 billion, that's crazy, but like that's 33 billion then. Okay? That equates to almost over half a trillion now. 500 plus, like 500 plus 500 billion dollars now. Yeah, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow for the Germans. That is super tough. If you have to pay back $500 billion, essentially, that's going to destroy your economy. That's going to destroy your government. That's going to destroy a lot of things. Okay, and we're talking like reparations. Think of it like a payback for all the crap you did, essentially. So like they have to pay reparations. So like you did all this bad stuff, you have to pay back for it. Okay, this is a big. Again, maybe this is like my personal opinion, so like take it with a grain of salt, right? Little salt. This is one of the biggest things, in my opinion, why Germany in 20 years there's another war, right? This is my opinion because they have to pay back so much and their economy is shot because of this and just completely hyperinflation, lack of jobs, destitute, and then it's a power vacuum. So you have all these things tied together, and as a result of that, you have World War II essentially. Here are your restrictions: cannot manufacture or import weapons or war materials. Okay, so you can't do any of that. You have to limit your army to 100K or less. Okay, can't have certain size naval ships and absolutely no submarines and zero air force. So basically, you can't do anything that could be construed as military, essentially. Again, really, really limiting the power and what the Allies look at this, and definitely Britain and France. They're going. We're going to do anything and everything we can because we are scared of the possibility of Germany doing that. Like we've already dealt with them, and they were a well-oiled machine. They were good at what they did, and we basically won because they had to fight two fronts, and then the U.S. came and helped, right? You can look at that, and so there's a reason behind their thought process, right? They're thinking about it. They're going, we keep taking we're nervous. Like we're taking a lot of casualties. We're taking a lot of things that aren't necessarily beneficial to us. So like we're going to put all these restrictions on you. We're going to place all these like buffers essentially, right? Like buffering here for the Navy, buffering no Air Force, so that you can't really attack us or defend yourselves. Again, idea. It's not bad. It's not bad. Okay, pretty good. Unfortunately, doesn't really pay out in the way that they thought. Okay, so League of Nations, Woodrow Wilson draws up these things. Is like, hey, all you do all these things, and then that way we can keep the peace. There's 14 points here. One of them being oh no, the League of Nations is like the precursor to like the UN in a way, but Wilson draws up all these. He's like, oh, we should do this, and then USA didn't even join it. so, so it's like, hey, let's do this. It's like like the UN like to keep peace, and then the US is like, we don't want to be a part of it. We're out. So it's like kind of, I think it's kind of funny. It's like historically, it's kind of, it's like, okay, we're gonna do all this. Y'all should join. And they're like, so USA, you in since it was your idea. And they're like, we don't want to be in here. We're going back over and see. Okay, peace out. Okay, it's again. I hope you understand that when I make these oversimplifications, it's simply that. It's an oversimplification so you get the idea. But yeah. So Germany entry. Germany is not part of any of these negotiations. So they're really not negotiations, are they? They're like, you have to do this. It's like when your parents, it's like something happens and then your parents are like, oh, you have to do this. And you're like, well, I didn't get a say in it. They're like, deal with it. But instead of it being you and your parents, it's nations. Okay. And Germany, like, we never lost the war. It wasn't even fought on German territory. Like, we technically didn't even lose. Like, come on, bro. Like, we over here, y'all just lucky that we had to fight two fronts and that the U.S. came in on your behalf. Okay. Germans believe that the treaty would like definitely reflect the 14 points, being like peace, trying to find long-term sustainability. In actuality, it was basically a punishment for Germany, losing territories, all their territories outside of Germany, gone. Can you have a military? Yeah. Is it effective? Mm-mm, not even a little bit. No. It's like driving a Ford Fiesta in a drag race against, like, I don't know, like a Ferrari. Like, not effective. Okay. Big one again, in my opinion, the war guild. It's like it was all your fault. Don't even look at the fact that it was actually an assassination by a Serbian national on an Austro-Hungarian archduke. No, no, all your fault, Germany. It's all on you. You got to deal with it. Okay. Um, there's a lot of things, and you look at that. It is. It sets up Germany for a huge recession slash depression. So recession is not as bad as depression. So, like, we're gonna take a quick side note to economics. So, like, the economy in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11 is a recession. It's like a dip in the output of the economy. People are unemployed. It's not good for the economy, right? You don't want to be in a recession. A depression is even worse. So, like, in the 1930s, the USA's, or the 1920s, 30s, like the USA's in the, well, not 1920s, scratch that. It's like late 20s, all through the 30s. We have an economic depression where it's like massive unemployment, um, people defaulting, whatnot. Germany is thrown into like, we talking astronomical depression. Okay, we're talking hyperinflation. So, like, inflation's a good thing. What inflation is a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. A dollar today is worth a dollar tomorrow is worth a dollar and a penny. Okay, so a dollar penny tomorrow. I hope that kind of makes sense. So inflation's not a bad thing. Okay, inflation's a bad thing when a dollar today is worth $5,000 tomorrow, because essentially means your currency is worthless. You can't buy goods, you can't sell goods really. It basically causes the value system of your economy to just basically disappear. Okay, it's not good. Germany, the German marks are basically become hyperinflated, and you can't buy goods, you can't buy services. Germany's in this crazy, horrible depression. They're the 20s because of this. Okay, so here we go, carving up Europe. The Allies, yeah, they were like, yeah, we don't like what just happened, so we're going to carve up all your land into multiple different nations. We're going to get rid of things that you shouldn't have anymore. They didn't really look at themselves why they did this, right? Like, all the allies still had their territories overseas, still had all their stuff, but they wanted to punish the allies. So, Austria Hungary. Well, obviously, y'all know now that there's an Austria and a Hungary. So, at the very least, there's two, but you have Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia that become out of this. Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia are no longer their own countries. They're multiple smaller countries, like the Czech Republic, like Serbia, Croatia, Slovakia, Slovenia. All those are now countries that used to be made up. They used to be part of a larger. Okay, so the Ottoman Turks got a TP, woo! But everything else that they had is different countries. So, like, Jordan, Georgia, goodness. Now I have to think of all these in that area, that, because I don't want to, like, tell you countries that already existed that I know for sure. Those I can't think of anymore. Serbia, not Serbia, uh, Syria, to name a few. Okay, so a lot of countries are coming out of this, and they just sliced and diced them up. Okay, just like they kind of did in Africa, where they're like arbitrary lines. The same thing happened. So you can kind of see the result of it. So here we go. There, Austria, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Croatia exists there now, Serbia, all those things. So you can see that this is still very, from what we see in 1919 to what we see in 2020, it still looks very different. Okay. So, you know what? I'm just gonna put these all up. I don't know why. Okay, so 14 points. League of Nations return. freedom of the sea, freedom of trade, limit the arms, and secret alliances, grant all colonies and nations independence, right to self-determination. So if you back, you look at that, that's pretty good, right? Hey, while everyone can like go around the seas, no problem. You should be able to trade with whomever and wherever you want. You want to limit the amount of military and guns and those secret alliances. Everyone knows who's with whom. Grant colonies independence, right to self determination. Right, you should be able to have determination over what's. You should be able to have a say over how you're ruled and what your allies are and whatnot. Well, the Treaty of Versailles returned land. So let me that that land that we're talking about is right here. Okay, this is what we're talking about in terms of what used to be German but is now France. Okay, it's definitely a sore spot. Definitely a sore spot for Germans. Okay, limit military. We talked about that. Allied occupying Rhineland. Okay, so sorry, I gotta go back. The Rhine River is the largest and most important river in Germany. The most important river, and it's right here. It kind of like goes all the way up through Hamburg, and so we have all those like major. When you think about like Frankfurt, Cologne, Dusseldorf, I want to say. I could be a little bit wrong. Dortmund, Hamburg, like big cities, like with the exception of like Munich and Berlin and Dresden, you can almost assume that it's on the Rhine River. Super important for Germany. Okay, so that entire area is going to be occupied by Allied troops. Again, not only did you have all these things happen to you, all this stuff. German people are like, dang, dang, dang. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to continue to occupy your land for 15 more years. Again, this is, I hope you're understanding all these things are now set. Like, all these things are reasons why World War II become, like, it happens. Okay? Created tons of new countries in Eastern Europe. You saw the map. You can go back again. Pay and war reparations. 500 billion in today's currency. 500 billion. That's insane amounts of money. Okay, and then you had to sign that you're the reason why the war started. It's all your fault. Okay, there's Treaty of Versailles does not sound like the 14 points. The 14 points sound pretty nice. Like I'm on board with the 14 points for the most part. Right, not a bad idea. Treaty of Versailles is basically a how can we get Germany? How can we stick it to them? Okay, so problems, yeah, tons of them, a ridiculous amount of them. Many countries were a little miffed at this. Okay, they're not exactly the best. They felt that the treaty was unfair. They felt that it wasn't equitable. They thought that only a couple countries benefited from it, and the vast majority of them took an L. America, like I said, was like, we're not going to sign the treaty. We want to stay out of European affairs. I mean, they entered, did all these things, and then pieced out. So America has a little bit of blame here too. And then Germany, very bitter, very bitter. Okay, I hope y'all are getting um, the little bit of feelings, that emotions, the emotions that the German populace be feeling right about now. Okay, I hope you understand that because it plays a role into like everyone's like, how did World War II start? Like, how would you let Hitler get in charge? Well, you're economically depressed, don't know where your money's coming from, have been basically pushed down for this amount of time, and then someone who's very charismatic and says that you're a great people and I'll get you back on the right path, it can happen. Okay, again, more complicated than that, but you can kind of see how power vacuum is there. Okay, so what's the impact? Well, crazy amount of deaths, 14 million for soldiers and civilians alike, not even including influenza that swept through. Okay, 330 billion. It's a lot of money to spend on war and all the damage that it caused. Okay, you have a changing of warfare. So instead of we all stand in a line and shoot muskets at each other, well, now we have trench warfare. Now we have submarine warfare. We have aerial warfare. We have gas. There's a term for that. Chemical warfare. Uh, Total war. Like these things are just game changers. And because technology is so much more advanced, the amount of people that die from these are astronomical. Okay, restructured Europe. Yeah, Europe does not look the same now that it did before the war, right? A lot of these large countries that have sustained all these other like smaller conflicts and whatnot don't exist. Okay, you have yeah. Again, I'm trying to instill in you how bitter Deutschland be, the people be at all this stuff. Because again, imagine not even wanting to start this war, getting brought in because your allies told you to, having to fight against people, and then all the blame gets put on you. It's like for those of you that have siblings, it's like when your sibling starts stumping, something, right? They come up to you and they smack you, and then you're like, what the heck? And then you get in a fight with them, and then your mom and dad see only you doing the thing, and they're like, it's all your fault. And you're like, what? I didn't do anything. Like, I just started it, and I didn't start it, right? And they're like, but it's all you. And you have to go to your room, and then you're like, sitting there, you're all mad. You're like, what the heck? That's not fair. Kind of like that. Um, so disillusionment and despair, right? This is definitely for, I would say the majority of this is for your allied, or not your non-allied nations, your Germany, your Austrians, your Hungarians, all those, because they are having problems. They don't know how they're going to recover from this. You have, okay, so I'll get there. But I would also say you have a definite change in health, right? Shell shock, PTSD, or the precursor to what is called PTSD now as a result of this. Definitely a lack of younger people, because war is fought with young adults, like 18, 19 through like 30s. So a significant amount of these people are dying. So it definitely impacts your birth rates. It impacts your workforce for sure. And then obviously, as I've been telling you, it sets the stage for World War II. You could almost say it's World War II is basically World War One Part Two. Okay, because for the most part, it's the same people duking it out against each other, with the exception of Italy changes sides again. Um, but for the most part, that's what happens, and you can kind of see how all these things that have happened play into it. So yeah, that's it. So I hope that y'all understand a little bit more of the impact of World War One. Again, if I try not to make errors when I speak because it's recorded. But if I made a slight error and you're like, wait a minute, Mr. Higgs, that's wrong. Yeah, I can be wrong. I can be wrong. Um, but I hope I explained that and made it somewhat interesting. I am sad that this is the last one. Oh, I'm sad I didn't get to do this in person. Y'all were wonderful. I loved having each and every one of you in my class. Please, 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 please finish strong. You have one more quiz on Thursday, and then your last the Friday, and then the last Monday, Tuesday. I just want you to finish whatever it is that you don't have. So look at your grade online. If you are missing something, it's like I'm missing it. I do it. If you swear that you've done it, let me know so I can double check to make sure that either A, I didn't miss it, or you turned it in after the due date and I didn't get to updating it. Let me know. I am not infallible. I I make mistakes all the time. Ask my wife. Okay. I make mistakes plenty of times. So please, if you do see any errors, any of that stuff, let me know. And with that, please reach out to me if you need something. But with that, last one, Mr. Hay.